Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets with Karl, Bryan. If you want to attract new high-end coaching clients, fill live events, and build a wildly profitable coaching practice where business owners pay, stay, and refer, you've come to the right place. In this podcast, Karl provides his keys to the kingdom for finding and signing high-paying clients and building the coaching business of your dreams. Here we go.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Business Coaching Secrets, where we decode the art and science of building a thriving coaching business. Let's see what we have in store today with none other than the legend himself, Karl Bryan, and of course, yours truly, the Road Dog. Shoots, welcome back to another show.
Yo, Road Dog. How goes it, my brother?
You know, it's going well. Super duper busy these days. Calendars overflowing. And, I guess these are good problems, right?
These are the problems you want, my man. Actually, I got to tell you this. You're probably going to ask me, but I'm going to go to it. Yesterday, out surfing, right, on my electric surfboard. And, we talk about sharks to do, right? Well, the sharks are always on, like, one of the things, like, where we live, right? Like, you can literally see the water is so clear. It's hard to believe, but you can see, like, you can see 40 feet down, and it feels like it's only 5 feet away, right? Because the water is so clear. And what happens is the sharks, which again, go over a shark, with, consistency. Anyways, yesterday I saw a shark, and I'm talking about a big shark, right? Well, big, I don't know, 6 foot, not like a mammoth, but a 6 foot shark, which is, trust me, it's big. And the problem is he wasn't on the surface, but he was almost on the surface. And I'm going to tell you, and of course, the rule of going over top of a shark is you don't go back for a second look. And of course, what did I do? I turned around and I went, oh, and I'm like, no, because I was like, oh my, how close to the surface is he? And then I'm like, Karl, what are you doing? And I turned around and I beelined it the other side of the marina. So anyways.
Just so you know, Hansi and I, we are convinced that you will die by shark.
Today, it's happening. Touch wood right now. Sure, it's right this minute.
There you go. Wood has been touched.
Thank you.
There you go. Anyways, from that horrific thought, let's go into a Zen thought, because you know what we did? We missed that. And that's on you, Zen master. You should have, your inner flow should have captured the moment of, Road Dog, we didn't do the Zen thought. So perhaps you're not the Zen master that you think you are, Shades.
That is, if I go by what people tell me, starting with life, that would be correct, but that's okay. All right, Zen thought, is that what I'm punching out here?
Yeah, this is it. Let's start off on fire today.
Yeah, Shades. I don't know, fire, but anyways, most successful entrepreneurs grew up in a lot of chaos, right? If you got a room of 100 business owners, and then if you say who between the age of 10 and 18 had some pretty, what we're going to call pretty reasonable sized challenges growing up, right? I'm telling you that the majority, if not the entire room, just put up their hand, right? And the Zen thought is like, most of us, that chaos was something to look back on as a blessing, not something to look back on with disappointment, right? Like, again, my big brother committed suicide when I was 16 years old. My dear mother then, punished herself. She drank herself to death as a result. And I had a front row seat for the entire thing, which no doubt I don't need to explain much there. It was rather, challenging as a young man would be understatement on steroids. But I just, looking back on disappointment, and as much as I would do anything, obviously, to change that in my own situation, I don't know about others. But that's obviously not possible, right? So you've got to see that as gasoline. You got to see that as fuel, rather than looking back on disappointment like, oh, I was hard done by, right? Anyway, so that's just something that came to mind. I think something that might be, this is from my daily email, and I'll probably make a meal of it. But Morgan Housel, I read the book Psychology of Money over the recent break. And what does he say? The heart the hardest financial skill, the hardest financial skill is getting the goalposts to stop moving on you, right? Like again, paraphrasing, but really difficult to get those. A financial skill is to get the goalposts to stop moving. And I think if ever there was a Zen moment or a Zen statement, I think that it is that. You know, you got to be careful that you and your high-end clients don't confuse what's important with what's impressive, right? Like, William Shakespeare's got a quote, hell is empty. It's right here on my whiteboard, by the way. Hell is empty and the devils are all here, right? Everyone wants to change the world, but nobody wants to change the toilet paper, right? So what do you got to do? You just need to, look in the mirror. You got to make small micro improvements on a consistent basis if you want to get to where you want to get. And maybe an exercise there that I've recommended in the past, but we'll do again. Sit down, and if you feel like that might be a little bit on the needle moving side, right? Sit down and stare in the mirror at yourself for 30 minutes without looking away. If you do it right, bring the tissues, by the way. So anyway, that's a really, and by the way, if you can do it once you do that, do it for 15 minutes, do it for 30 minutes. If you do it for an hour, significantly more powerful than just doing it for 30 minutes, by the way. And as you do that and you think about some things that, you've screwed up, you're screwing up, et cetera, which will absolutely come to be, just have solace in the fact that nobody knows what the hell they are doing, right? That includes Elon Musk, that was Steve Jobs back in the day, Michael Jordan when he was playing basketball, Michael Schumacher when he was driving for Ferrari. Jeff Bezos didn't have it worked out despite the story. But remember, what does Steve Jobs say? I think we said this last week, the week before. But, connecting the dots moving forward is impossible. You can only connect the dots looking backward, right? So anyways, advice that I gave to a very close friend of mine who I've spoken to, he's going through a little bit of a hostile takeover type situation. And it's just next action, next action, next action, next action. Don't try work it all out. Second, third, fourth order consequences, thinking too big. The enemy for him right now. Next action, next action. So to the business coaches listening, you want to fill your local live event rather than taking on the world, although I do believe you should have a very big vision for yourself. Really what you got to do in order, it's the toilet paper thing I just said. Again, everybody's trying to change the world, but nobody wants to change the toilet paper. Just pick up the phone, send out the message, contact the JV, get in the car, drive to the networking group and deliver your elevator pitch in a powerful way, et cetera. So shoots, that's what I got, bud. That's what I got.
So when you're talking about this is complete side sort of question here. You're talking about all the coaches. That just out of curiosity, like you do daily emails. What gets the most responses? Like over the past couple of weeks, which one of your emails has sort of triggered and or I guess gotten the most activity for you? I know it's sort of a random off the cuff sort of question, but I'm just curious because you do these every day. I'm sure every once in a while you have a home run where you're like, whoa, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah. Actually, you know what it was? It was just it was not too long ago, within the last 10 days for sure. Everybody wants to invest in Bitcoin, but the truth is, they just haven't got their act together or whatever. If you want to invest in Bitcoin, you can do it through the stock market. Just what you got to do is you got to invest in companies that are investing wildly in Bitcoin, right? So a company like Coinbase would be a good example, Marathon, Galaxy. There's a company, MicroStrategy, which would be the needle mover. They're the most aggressive, I believe. Again, don't quote me on that. Do your own homework, not financial advice, by the way. They're the most aggressive. But if you wanted to bet on Bitcoin and you wanted to do it through the stock market, because that's where all your money is, et cetera, that's what you could do. MicroStrategy. And by the way, Tesla would fall into that as well. So there's that. I can tell you that I sent this out and this has a little bit to do with my past and whatnot. But if you can turn around a suicide, you could turn around somebody, you're calling somebody and trying to invite them to your local live event, right? And they're either interested, not interested, or likely live in the maybe land in the middle. If you could turn around a suicide, you could turn that person into an attendee to your live event, right? You could close a coaching client. If you could turn around a suicide, you could close a coaching client. And by the way, a coaching client that wants to cancel, you could certainly turn that individual around. What do you got to do? You got to take the same level of care, attention to detail. Imagine if you're on the phone with somebody you love, the level of attentiveness to you in that, on that call or in that conversation. I dare say it would be next level, and nothing else matters but that individual. You're not looking at your phone. You're not thinking about the internet. You're not thinking about some challenges that you got otherwise. I mean, you're totally dialed in. So I would just say that, it's like Peter Thiel's got a quote, courage is in far shorter supply than genius, right? I would dare say taking that level of care. Remember, optimism can give you 10 IQ points. Level of care can, equally increasing your IQ. Hopefully you're understanding what I'm saying, right? Like, again, that the courage on that call, that's what it takes to turn that person around, that you are worthy, your event is worthy, your coaching is worthy. You are the needle mover. You are the vehicle that's going to get that person to the next level. Show up with that, and I think you'll be in good shape. Anyway, so that would be the answer, but the Bitcoin by a long way, people didn't really think of it that way. I thought that was pretty good. So there you go.
Okay. So courage, I guess when you're talking about that, turning around a suicide, that comes down to communication, which sometimes, I think it's a skill we can always all get better at, but which is now, as I'm now going down my rabbit hole of my mind of, well, what are the other issues? Like, what do you think is the number one problem business owners have?
Well, it depends if you ask them. You go to the data, right? So you sit down with the business owner and you say, what are your 3 biggest challenges / obstacles, which, by the way, should be one of your first questions you always ask if you wanted to sell somebody coaching. And what they say, you talk about, again, you need to listen to what they're saying, what they're not saying, and the way in which they're saying it. But they will say one of 5. I used to say 4, but it's actually 5 because they'll break it up. But it's leads, sales, marketing, systems, or staff. They won't use those words necessarily, but that is absolutely what will come out of their mouth with ridiculous predictability. And the truth is, it's really an economics problem. It's math. It's a business model problem, right? A loose example that I would give you is accounting, right? I co-wrote a book on accounting, and it's, I teach a 4-day training on how to read financial statements and find your high-end consulting fees prior to starting with your high-end consulting / coaching client. And here's a problem that accountants face, right? They work with a chiropractor and they charge $2,400 a year approximately. Okay, so that's the chiropractor, the dentist, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, right? $2,400, keep them compliant. And then they have this little thing called tax season that literally ages them. Okay. And they all hate it. And it is brutal. They don't have enough time to get home to have dinner with the family, right? Nor lunch, nor breakfast. Well, an accountant, what they really want to do is they want to work with the clients that are kicking butt, taking names, and frankly, getting financial statements and actually assessing the data. So if they charge $2,400 a year, what's the hardest thing for an accountant to do? And that's to get a new client, just like, frankly, any business out there, always the most expensive function of a company. Well, if they sold, let's just say $2,000 a month, $24,000 was like the framework for the average chiropractor, dentist, etc. Well, that's 24 grand, right? $2,000 a month is $24,000 a year. My question is, could the accountant do taxes for free? Get 1 in 10 people to say yes at $2,000 a month, 24 grand a year. And then wouldn't they be a break even? And then if you got 2 in 10 people to say yes at 24 grand, wouldn't they have just doubled their revenue? And what if they got 3, and there's reciprocity built in because now you're not doing their taxes for free forever. It's a way of getting a new client. You bring them in and the first 12 months are no charge, right? $2,400. And it's not $2,400 hard cash. They're paying the accountant to do the taxes, right? Wouldn't that be a better business model? Right. And then how much easier would it be for the accountant to get clients if they were willing to do the taxes for free? And by the way, there should be caveats there where you're doing that for a business that's, you have to have done $500,000 last year in gross revenues in order to qualify, right? Or $100,000 net, whatever. Got what I mean? They can create some parameters. And if it's a higher level accountant, somebody who's busier, it could be $1 million, et cetera. And by the way, like, would that work? Right. And then one of the mistakes that the accountants make is they hire like 1, 5, 10, 20, 50 accountants in a row. And if you like the model that I just described, what they do is they hire 1 accountant, 2 accountant, 3 accountant, consultant, 1 accountant, 2 accountant, 3 accountants, consultant, right? And that, by the way, I think could be the basis of a multi-million-dollar accounting firm. And then, of course, the Jedi mind trick for them is they're like, oh my gosh, so that let's say that they sell 3 and 10 people into higher end consulting. That means that they're doing 7 tax returns for free. And that's the mental gymnastics, right? But then what I would say is there's a little company called Facebook. There's a little company called LinkedIn and a little company called Instagram. How much they charge you up front? And of course, you are correct. They charge you nothing, right? And apparently it's working out all right. And by the way, would the accountant do that? Probably not, but surely a hybrid. And at an absolute minimum, and this is why, we have tons of accountants that work with us. So what they do is they build a consulting division to complement their existing business. And then, by the way, if they do it right, within 1 to 3 years, generally speaking, the division that I just talked about is significantly more profitable than the business that they originally had of doing tax returns for $2,400 a year, right? And by the way, they're taking when you work with a client and you do all that work, well, guess what? Tax season doesn't exist for that client because part of what you're doing as you're working with them is you're providing proper financial statements. So at the end of the year, it's not how much you owe; it's the press of a button because the numbers are already in. They might want to. You know what I mean? There might be a little bit of adjusting to do. But strictly speaking, the numbers are already in, right? I would dare say the accountant will tell you that's a far better business than they currently have. And by the way, so let's go to an advertising platform, the online directory, the coupon book, the magazine, the newspaper, the radio station, the billboard company, same thing. Let's just pretend their ads are $2,400. And by the way, their ads are probably $500 as opposed to $2,400. But could they do the ads for free and then sell 1 in 10 people into a $24,000 product? And by the way, what's the hardest thing of advertising? And that's to get a new client, right? And then, by the way, why do they stop? Because the ad's not working. Why is the ad not working? Is it the ad's fault or is it their business model? The same way, the chiropractor doesn't have a $24,000 product. Why? Because they say that nobody would buy a $24,000 product. But then you could introduce them to thousands and thousands of chiropractors around the world that don't have $24,000 programs, but they have $50,000 chiropractic programs that do sell. Do they sell every day and do they sell en masse? No. But, if you had a $24,000 product and you sold 10 of them a year, that's $250,000 with what I could only assume is significantly greater margin. Remember 3 rules of real estate: location, location, location. I believe that there's 3 rules of business and it should be margin, 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 but nobody ever talks about it. Right. And by the way, is the advertising medium going to do all their ads for free? Probably too much mental gymnastics to get their head around, but surely they could create a consulting division. Because why does somebody buy an ad? They buy an ad to get leads so they can get prospects, they can get clients, they can get revenue, so they can get profit, so they can get cash, so they can get closer to freedom, right? And then my question is, does the ad get them closer to freedom with 80% predictability, if not 95? And I think that it actually gets them further away. Well, what's the real problem? The client needs consulting. You motivate an idiot, they do stupid things quicker, right? They need an upsell, a downsell. They need the Jumpstart 12 straight off of my software, right? They need an upsell, a downsell, a cross-sell, a market dominating position / unique selling proposition. They need the bundle. They need JVs. They got to control their costs. They got to increase their revenues or increase their costs over time. So anyways, so answer, what is the number one problem a business owner have? Again, they think it's a lead problem, a sales problem, marketing problem, systems, or staff. And the reality is, with ridiculous predictability, and let's just assume 80%-ish, it's really a business model problem, right? And by the way, your client, if you want to develop personally, okay, so personal development, what I'm trying to say there, like you want to develop yourself and you want to have compounding results, look at your daily activities and strengthen them, right? Consistency over intensity, and consistency with intensity, look out, right? But again, your daily habits, their daily activities and your daily activities, that's where all the magic is. And a daily activity and consistency with a big vision, I think we talked about last week, like Zuckerberg and Gary Vee and Elon Musk, et cetera, have that big vision for your local community, bigger than they could ever dream and bigger than they can think. And I think you'll be in good shape. That's my answer, but what do you think? How to do?
Yeah, no, it's good. You mentioned the 3 rules of real estate there, by the way. And it's amazing how much I've been reading about, the rules lately. And you have something with the 2 rules, right? Like what are your 2 rules?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Internally, man, you haven't seen it by accident because we're hammering it constantly. So Buffett, it comes from the genesis is Buffett, right? He's got 2 rules of investing. What are they? Rule number 1, don't lose money. Rule number 2, see rule number 1, right? And again, when people hear that, they think it's a throwaway line. The reality is that methodology built one of the greatest investors of all time, to the tune of, I don't know his net worth, but let's just assume it's $150 billion, which is an insane amount of money. Let's agree with that. So I said, okay, so what are the 2 rules of business? And there are only 2 rules. Rule number 1, get clients. Rule number 2, keep clients, right? That is Ford. That is Tesla. That's the methodology of Elon, which I don't know that, by the way, but I could only assume he's trying to keep clients around and get them to, buy a Tesla and then buy another, and keep their Tesla for that matter. So there's 2 rules of business: get clients, keep clients. And again, that goes for the big dogs and that goes for your local landscaper, right? And then 2 rules of coaching. And again, I'm playing with this a little bit, but you need so we say little red arrow, you are here, and then establish where it is that they want to go. And if you thought about that in the same vein, just really dummy it down. Rule number 1, you got to establish a starting line. Rule number 2, you got to establish a finish line. The same for the swimming race and the same for the 100-meter dash. You got a starting line that is clearly defined, and you've got a finish line so clearly defined that they have photo finishes, and they take a photo and you can see it right there, right? If you could define your finish line that clearly and succinctly, you'd be in very, very good shape. So there's 2 questions that have driven me for the last 2 decades. Question number 1, which is similar, but slightly different. And it's, why do 90% of businesses fail within 5 years and not achieve profitability? And then question number 2 is, what are the 10%? What are the commonalities amongst the 10% that stand the test of time and achieve profitability? And if you watch my masterclass, by the way, you would know the answer to that, but it lies in something called the Jumpstart 12, which is the genesis of my software. And exactly what small business owners should be putting in place. It's exactly what Subway put in place. It's exactly what McDonald's put in place. It's exactly what the biggest companies in the world put in place. And the chiropractor, the dentist, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker could follow the same vein. Anyway, so I got a couple of others that I'm playing with. I'm not going to bore you with here, but I think those are kind of the important ones. Buffett's business coaching. And I think that framework makes it really, really easy for people to follow. And then it makes it easier for your coaching client to follow, right? Keep it simple, stupid.
There you go. Hey, speaking of Buffett, what do you say when somebody asks you what's the difference between wealth versus earned income? Like what's your general response to that?
Ooh. Did you say earned income? Wealth, earned income?
Correct. Yep.
Well, my response is that 80% of wealth is accumulated. And I think that would leave that 20% is earned, right? So it's like 80% of wealth is accumulated over time, right? Warren Buffett accumulated like 90% of his net worth of $150 billion or whatever it is, right? A monster number after a 60th birthday, right? So not earning or selling, he earned it by holding, right? So like inflation, like no doubt, like inflation, very hot topic right now. And, people, and truth, it's not a hot topic. People are feeling it, right? You go to buy groceries and it costs you 50% more than it did some time ago. You feel that, right? And the income did not increase by 50%. They'll give you the red hot tip, right? So inflation is a tax from the wealthy to the non-wealthy, right? And then if you were to ask me the anecdote, the solution to that, so how do you, change your position? And the answer is to own appreciating assets, right? And by the way, inflation, guess what happens? Stocks go up, real estate goes up. I got to put crypto in there nowadays. Crypto is also going up, although I don't know that it's completely aligned, but should probably have a presence there now. And of course, businesses, right? The value of businesses have gone up over that, that last period of time while we've experienced a lot of inflation, right? And by the way, ideally own appreciating, what did I say? Appreciating assets, but you really want to own appreciating cash flowing assets, which probably pretty straightforward, but that is the renter paying your mortgage, right? That is a stock with a healthy dividend, right? But the bottom line is you got to invest and own assets. Don't wait for them to go down. I don't know. That's some hard, again, not financial advice, but, waiting, sitting there and waiting for the stock market to correct and waiting for the housing market to correct. How has that worked out over the last 5 years, right? So I always say you got to get into the market and you dollar cost average, right? Again, just every week, every month, every quarter, you buy the same amount. So when it's up, you buy poorly, and when it's down, you pour better, and at dollar cost averages, right? Like we've said this so many times on the podcast at different times, but like home flippers get caught with their pants down. And by the way, if you don't believe me, which I'm more than happy for you not to, just go speak to some people that have bought and sold houses over, X period of time, and, they get caught. And translation, it kind of ends poorly, right? So the solution, so don't buy and sell old. Here's my saying for years and years: old money equals never sell, right? Zuckerberg, he was offered like $1 billion by Yahoo to buy Facebook way back when. Pretty famous story now, but what did he say? It's not that he said no, but if you listen to Peter Thiel, the original investor in Facebook, who thought this is worth tabling, he said he didn't even take the call, right? It was like game over. The Waltons didn't sell Walmart, right? Maybe I got to dummy down an example. Like what most people will do, your coaching clients will do, is they own a house and then they want to buy another one. And then they will sell the first house to buy the second, right? But what they can do in many cases, speak to your accountant, speak to their representatives, quote unquote. But what they can do is they can draw 60 to, depend on, let's just say 60%, and it can be more than that. They can borrow 60% against their existing house to get the down payment for their second house, right? Because you got to own two to really win. You can't get ahead unless you got two, right? If you only own one, I guess, unless you downsize, but I'm going to assume your coaching client and yourself, you've got big goals. Well, if you got big goals, then you're selling one house to buy another. I think if you look at it, that's a debatably, I don't know if it's a bad decision or a bad roadmap, but it's not the one that's going to accumulate. Because remember, wealth is accumulated as opposed to earned. Okay. How do you do that? By owning assets that appreciate over time. Inflation goes up dramatically. Well, when inflation goes up, that is stock market going up. That is real estate going up. That is, I'll assume, crypto going up, and the value of businesses going up. So, and maybe the story of Bezos, when he, remember like Amazon.scam and that sort of thing, what was he doing then? He was like, he thought that the stock was undervalued and different than almost every other CEO, certainly the norm. He was buying the stock back, right? And again, now like I said, the Bezos, one of the greatest business minds of all time. You can learn so much from him, from learning, instead of reading the latest, greatest business book, read letters to shareholders. And I think, dating back way 1997 and onwards, and you can see his plan developing and his methodology and, in between his ears. And it's just like a bit, you want to get an MBA, read those, take notes, commit it to memory. You'll be in good shape. Okay, hang on. I want to make sure that I give an example. So some of that might be completely irrelevant for our existing coaches and consultants. You're currently working with a chiropractor and a dentist and whatnot. Here's something that I think could be implemented at a very profitable way. Your client owns a daycare, hypothetically. Any business that's got brick and mortar put in there. Once successful, don't do it until they have a framework and you're very comfortable that they're going to stand the test of time and they get over that kind of two-year blip where 80% go under. Have them find a location not too far, presumably from where they currently are, would make sense, right? Because their client list doesn't want to have to travel too far. But they buy the location, build the business up, and then as a 5-year plan, they sell the business, keep the real estate, and now the renter becomes, like the person who bought the company becomes their new renter, right? Which gives that's McDonald's 101, by the way. Remember, McDonald's wasn't in the hamburger business. Ray Kroc took them into the real estate business, right? Worked out pretty well. So anyway, they hopefully everybody's getting that. They can sell the business in 5 years, continue to own the real estate. Remember, old money equals never sell. They've got an inbuilt renter. They'd also have some control over that business, I would assume, to make sure that they're, paying off the business. You could do a vendor financing type thing. And I think that's a good framework. So there you go. That's what I would say shoots wealth versus earned income. Wealth, 80% accumulated. It's not earned. For the big dogs, it is accumulated by owning valuable things, business, real estate, portfolio of stocks. That's my answer, Shoots.
Love it. I feel like we covered a lot here in a short period of time. If you were to now whittle that down into the one thing, what do you think the one thing is somebody could take from today's podcast and start implementing into their business today?
I think simplicity. I think 2 rules, and develop, create your own. You know what I mean? Like, again, that's, just make things super. Steve Jobs would always tell you that, the ultimate complexity is simplifying, right? Like, again, no doubt, the stories around that, but you know what I mean? This, get clients, keep clients, get clients, keep clients, make it harder and harder and harder for them to disconnect from you. Take time on, how would you do that? Build their website, create their emails for them. I just think the simplicity, get clients, keep clients. And then you've got to coach it. Like, if you want to know what coaching is, it is establish the starting line, define it really clearly, like a white line across, for the 100 meter sprint, right? And then create the finish line, which the hardest thing you'll ever do, you, me, Road Dogg, Tony Robbins, Warren Buffett, is clearly define what it is that you want, but take the time and help your client to do that. Do it yourself, of course. And I think that you'll be in really good shape. So I think the simplicity of that is what's standing out, bud. That's my answer, bud. What do you think? Like it?
Love it. All right, folks. Well, that is it. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Business Coaching Secrets. And again, if you're not on the inside getting access to the pre-show, or you aren't getting Karl's daily emails, or just want to get more information on how to grow, build, and scale your coaching company, visit focused.com and subscribe today. And again, also, if you enjoyed the podcast, please like and subscribe and share with a fellow coach, as we're trying to reach as many people and have as big of an impact as we possibly can. And that is it for another week. We will see you on the next episode. And remember, folks, progress equals happiness. Take care, everybody.
Karl Bryan built Profit Acceleration Software 2.0. So as a business coach, you'll never again have to worry about working with business owners that can't afford your high-end coaching fees. Check us out at focused.com.